In a busy city where tall buildings touched the sky and the streets were always full of noise, there lived a man named JD. He was known by almost everyone. People said he was the most powerful businessman in the city, maybe even the whole country. JD owned many companies, sat on important boards, and had friends in the government. He wore expensive suits and drove in shiny black cars. Wherever he went, people moved out of his way, and when he spoke, people listened. JD liked things to stay the same. He believed in the way things had always been done, and he did not want that to change. Far away from the city, in a small village in West Africa, a young man named Traoré grew up dreaming of a better life. He watched his mother wake up before sunrise every day, working hard to give him and his little sister a chance to go to school. Life was not easy, but Traoré was always curious, always asking questions. When he was old enough, he saved up money and made a big decision. He would go to the city, far away, to look for new opportunities and help his family. The day Traoré arrived in the city, everything felt new and strange. The air was thick with the smell of cars and food from street vendors. People rushed past him, speaking a language that sometimes felt like a puzzle. But Traoré was not afraid. He smiled at everyone he met, even when most people did not smile. He was determined to find his place. He soon learned that life in the city was much harder than he imagined. Finding a place to live was difficult. He ended up sharing a small room with 3 other men who were also from different countries. To make money, he took any job he could find. Sometimes he washed dishes in restaurants until late at night. Other times, he carried heavy boxes in warehouses. At first, no one seemed to notice him, and sometimes people even ignored him when he asked for help. But Traoré did not give up, sent most of his money back home, keeping only enough to eat, and buy second-hand clothes. After many months, Traoré's language skills improved. He watched videos online, listened to music, and read books he borrowed from the public library. He began to understand how the city worked and who the important people were. He heard about JD and the way he controlled many parts of the city, making the rules and deciding who got a chance and who did not. One day Traoré learned about a special networking event. It was for people who wanted to start businesses, and important leaders would be there. Traoré thought this could be his chance. He wore his cleanest shirt and borrowed a tie from his roommate. With hope in his heart, he went to the tall building where the event was held. Inside, the room sparkled with bright lights. People stood in groups, laughing and shaking hands. They wore beautiful clothes and spoke with confidence. Traoré felt a little nervous, but he gathered his courage and walked over to introduce himself to a group. He told them about his ideas to help people find jobs and make life better for immigrants like him. At that moment, JD walked into the room. Everyone turned to look. He greeted the people around him with a strong handshake and a firm smile. When JD saw Traoré speaking to his friends, he walked over, looked Traoré up and down. In front of everyone, JD said loudly, "You don't belong in this world order." The room went quiet. People looked at Traoré, waiting to see what he would do. Traoré felt his face grow hot. He wanted to say something back, but the words caught in his throat. JD's words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. The group of people began to move away from Traoré, pretending not to notice him. Traoré stood there alone, feeling smaller than ever. But as he left the event, walking alone in the dark streets, Traoré thought about his mother and his sister. He remembered all the hard work he had done just to reach this city. He remembered the promise he made to himself, that he would never give up, no matter what happened. Sitting on a bench in a small park, Traoré looked up at the city lights. He realized that if someone like JD could decide who belonged and who did not, then the world order was not fair at all. He decided he would not let one man's words shape his destiny. In his heart, a fire began to grow. Traoré made a silent promise. He would not only find his place, but he would also help others who felt left out, just like him. He would challenge the rules, even if he had to do it alone. The next morning, Traoré woke up before sunrise. He was tired, but his spirit was stronger. Instead of letting JD's words defeat him, he started to see them as a challenge. He spent extra hours after work researching how businesses were started in the city. He went back to the library and read everything he could about successful entrepreneurs, especially those who had started with nothing. He'd talk to people in his neighborhood, listening to their stories and sharing his own dreams. Soon Traoré began to notice that he was not alone. There were many others in the city who felt left out, who had big dreams but small chances. Traoré started bringing people together, meeting in small groups to talk about ideas and support one another. Little by little, his confidence grew. The city was still full of challenges. Some days were so difficult that Traoré thought about going home. But every time he felt weak, he remembered JD's words and the look on his mother's face when he left his village. He realized he was stronger than the doubts inside him. Months passed, and Traoré's reputation grew. People in his community started to notice his hard work and positive attitude. He was still far from reaching his goals. But now, he believed that change was possible. JD might have power and money, but Traoré had hope and the support of people who believed in him. In the end, the words that were meant to keep Traoré down only made him more determined to rise. He did not belong in the world order that JD believed in, but maybe, just maybe, he could help build a better one. Let me know when you want part 2. Traoré's days began early and ended late. The city that once seemed full of hope sometimes felt like a puzzle he could never solve. But every morning he looked in the mirror, splashed water on his face, and reminded himself why he was there. He had come not just for himself, but for his family and for everyone back home who counted on him. His mother's voice in his mind always said, "Be strong, Traoré. Your dreams are bigger than your fears." Life in the city was a never-ending test of patience. After JD had dismissed him so harshly, Traoré felt like every door was closed. When he went to apply for better jobs, he was often turned away with only a polite smile or a shaking head. Sometimes, people didn't even listen to him. They just looked past him as if he wasn't there. Even when he got a chance to interview, he would often hear, "We'll call you," but the call never came. To survive, Traoré worked at a small restaurant as a dishwasher. The pay was low, and the work was hard, but he never complained. He learned how to be fast and careful at the same time. The chef noticed his hard work and sometimes gave him leftover food to take home. Traoré saved every penny, sending what he could back to his mother and sister in the village. He lived in a tiny apartment in a crowded building, sharing the space with men who were just like him. Some came from Africa, others from Asia, and a few from Eastern Europe. At night, they all shared stories about their home countries and their reasons for coming to the city. Even though they spoke different languages, they understood each other's dreams. Sometimes they laughed together. Other nights, they simply sat quietly, thinking about loved ones far away. But Traoré was not satisfied with just surviving. He wanted to do something bigger, something that would help people like him. He started to look for ways to learn more about business. Every day after work, he went to the public library. First, he didn't know what books to read, so he asked the librarian for advice. The librarian, an old woman with a gentle smile, became his friend. She helped him find books about business, technology, and success stories. Traoré read as much as he could, taking notes and asking questions whenever he didn't understand something. He also went to free classes held at a community center. There he met people who were learning new skills to find better jobs. Teachers noticed Traoré's passion and encouraged him to keep going. One of them told him about a grant for a community project. The grant was for people who had ideas that could make life better for others in their neighborhood. This gave Traoré an idea. He wanted to help immigrants find jobs and adjust to city life. He remembered how lost he felt when he first arrived. Maybe with a little help, new arrivals would not feel as alone as he did. For days, Traoré worked on his grant proposal. He asked his friends for feedback and stayed up late rewriting every word. He described his idea for a community tech project website and support group to connect immigrants with job opportunities and practical help. When he submitted the proposal, he didn't know what would happen, but he hoped for the best.
Yes.
Past Traoré kept working at the restaurant, but now he felt a new excitement. One morning, as he was washing dishes, his phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from the community center. He read the first line, and his hands began to shake with happiness. He had been chosen for the grant. It was a small amount, but enough to start his project. He shared the news with his roommates, and they celebrated. With a simple dinner together, for the first time since arriving in the city, Traoré felt like maybe he belonged. He set up meetings with people in the neighborhood, asked for volunteers, and used the grant money to buy a used laptop. He built a simple website and printed flyers to share his project with others. Soon, people began coming to his meetings. Some were new immigrants who needed help. Others were local people who wanted to support his mission. The project grew quickly. Traoré helped people write resumes, fill out job applications, and learn computer basics. He organized small job fairs in the neighborhood and invited local businesses to meet with job seekers. I felt proud every time someone got a job or shared their success story. Despite these victories, the city's power structure did not change. JD and his friends still controlled most opportunities. One day, Traoré heard that JD had dismissed his project in a meeting, calling it insignificant and saying it wouldn't make a real difference. When Traoré learned this, he felt both disappointed and motivated. If the people in charge saw his progress as nothing, then he would just have to prove them wrong. He pushed himself even harder. He visited local businesses in person, asking for their support. Some were kind and offered help, but many were afraid to go against JD's influence. Traoré didn't blame them. He knew that changing things would not be easy, but he did not stop. Every no he heard made him stronger. One day, while organizing a small job fair, Traoré met a woman named Clara, who worked for a local newspaper. She asked him about his story and why he worked so hard for others. Traoré told her everything about his journey, his family, and the words JD had spoken to him. Clara wrote an article about Traoré and his project, which was published on the front page of the local news. The response was amazing. People from all over the city sent messages of support. Some offered to volunteer, others donated money to help keep the project going. Traoré was invited to speak at community meetings and on local radio. His phone was full of messages from people asking for advice or simply thanking him for his courage. Still, life was not easy. Traoré often felt tired and sometimes doubted himself. The memory of JD's words stayed with him, but now they felt different. They no longer made him feel small. Instead, they reminded him of how far he had come and how much further he could go. Through all the challenges, Traoré found hope in the people around him. His friends, the librarian, the teachers at the community center, and even strangers who reached out to help, each one became part of his journey. Together, they showed him that the city was full of good people who wanted to make things better. By the end of the year, Traoré's project had helped dozens of people find work and feel at home in the city. He looked at the website he built and smiled, thinking about the future. He knew there would be more challenges ahead, but he also knew he would never give up. Traoré had turned the pain of rejection into the power to help others. And even though the old world order had tried to keep him out, he was slowly building. Something new, one small step at a time. Let me know when to start part 3. As Traoré's project grew, he began to see the city with new eyes. No longer did he feel invisible. Instead, he started to notice how many people struggled like he once did. On the bus, in the markets, in small shops tucked away on quiet streets, he saw faces full of hope and fear, people carrying dreams just like his. Whenever he met someone who was new to the city or needed a job, he handed them a flyer for his project, or simply offered a few kind words. Word about Traoré spread beyond his neighborhood, and soon people from different backgrounds started reaching out to him for help. With every passing week, his meetings became larger. Immigrants, students, and even some locals joined together. In small rooms above grocery stores and in the back corners of libraries, they shared food, stories, and ideas. Some brought their own skills to the table. One woman offered to teach computer classes, while another helped newcomers fill out government forms. It felt like a family, a group of people lifting each other up. As more people joined, Traoré realized that the problems they faced were not just about finding jobs. Many had trouble finding affordable places to live. Some had qualifications from their home countries that were not recognized in the city. Others had experienced discrimination or were afraid to ask for help because they worried they would not be welcome. Listening to their stories made Traoré even more determined to find bigger solutions. That's when he got the idea to start a new project, a business that would connect marginalized people to jobs and affordable housing. He called it Open Doors. With the help of his friends, Traoré put together a simple plan: build a website that would let people create profiles, post their skills, and find job listings and rooms to rent. He asked for volunteers to help with the website and reached out to local tech students for advice. But as Open Doors started to take shape, Traoré ran into new problems. He needed money to keep the website running, and he needed support from businesses and organizations in the city. Many times when he reached out to companies for help, they politely declined. Some never replied. Others were friendly at first, but changed their minds when they heard who was behind the project. One day, Traoré managed to book a meeting with a well-known company that was famous for helping social causes. He walked into the tall glass building, wearing the same tie he had borrowed for the networking event so long ago. The meeting went well at first. The manager smiled and asked questions, but then glanced at his name on the application. Her smile faded and she said, "We're not sure this project fits our current goals." Traoré thanked her and left, trying not to let the disappointment show on his face. Later that week, Traoré learned from a friend who worked in another company that some big businesses in the city were told not to support him. The message had come from JD and his close circle. They saw Traoré's efforts as a threat to the way things had always worked. If more people like Traoré succeeded, the old world order might change. This knowledge hurt, but it also made Traoré more determined. He realized that he was not only fighting for himself, but for everyone who had been told they did not belong. Even with powerful people working against him, Traoré did not give up. He found other ways to raise money, organized small fundraising, events selling homemade food, hosting music nights, and asking for donations online. Slowly, the community came together to support him. Volunteers offered their skills, people shared what little they had, and small businesses began to quietly help. Some gave jobs to new arrivals, while others offered discounts for services. Traoré became known for his energy and kindness. He went from door to door, visiting families and small shops, listening to their struggles and looking for ways to help. When he heard about a landlord who was fair and kind, he added them to the Open Doors website. When he found a business owner who wanted to hire more diverse workers, he helped them write job postings. But JD was not pleased. He started to notice that more people were talking about Traoré and his project. Some of JD's business friends complained that they were being asked tough questions by journalists or pressured by the community to change their hiring practices. JD tried to ignore it at first, but when he saw a news story about Traoré on television, he grew angry. One afternoon, Traoré received an invitation to a big public meeting about jobs and business in the city. He knew JD would be there. Traoré felt nervous, but determined to go. When he arrived, the room was full of important people. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with cold eyes. Traoré listened as JD spoke about tradition, business, and the need to protect the world order. Then, during the questions, part of the meeting, Traoré stood up and politely asked, "How can we make sure everyone gets a fair chance, no matter where they come from?" The room fell silent. JD looked at him, then replied, "The world order exists for a reason. Not everyone can be a part of it." The words were familiar and sharp, but this time, Traoré did not shrink back. He looked JD in the eye and answered, "If I do not belong in your world order, then I'll break it and help build a new one for everyone." People in the room whispered, and some even clapped softly. It was a small moment, but for Traoré, it felt huge. He realized he had found his voice. He was not just trying to fit in, he was standing up for something bigger than himself. After the meeting, more people came to speak to Traoré. Some thanked him for his courage, others offered advice, or wanted to join his cause. A few reporters asked for interviews. Soon the story of Traoré and Open Doors spread even further. His website received hundreds of visits a day, and new volunteers joined the project. People who had once felt powerless now felt seen and heard. As Open Doors grew, so did the challenges. JD and his group tried to block funding and spread rumors about Traoré. Some nights, Traoré felt exhausted and wondered if he was making a difference. But every time someone got a job, found a safe place to live, or shared a story of hope, Traoré's faith grew stronger. He learned that changing the world order was not about fighting a single person, but about helping people find strength in themselves and each other. Traoré saw that when people worked together, even the strongest walls could be broken. And as he walked through the city, he knew he was no longer alone. The movement for a fairer world was growing, and he was proud to be a part of it. Let me know when you want part 4. The city was changing, and so was the life of Traoré. After years of hard work, setbacks, and moments of doubt, he finally saw the results of his efforts. Open Doors was no longer a small project in a crowded neighborhood. It had grown into a powerful movement. It helped hundreds of people find jobs and homes. It gave hope to those who had felt invisible and powerless. But the true change went deeper than numbers. It was a change in hearts and minds. Traoré had become a symbol of courage and kindness, a living proof that one person could make a difference. People no longer saw him as the outsider who didn't belong. Instead, they saw a leader who had faced rejection and refused to give up. Even some people who once supported JD started to admire Traoré's passion and honesty. JD was now in a very different place. The powerful man who once controlled much of the city's business world found himself isolated. Some old friends had turned away. His influence was smaller, and his words did not carry the same weight. JD had to face the truth. The world order he fought to keep was changing, whether he liked it or not. But Traoré did not celebrate JD's fall. He understood that change was not about destroying people, but about building better systems that included everyone. He believed that everyone deserved respect, even those who had once stood against him. Instead of bitterness, Traoré chose forgiveness. In understanding with this new spirit, Traoré and his team focused on creating lasting solutions. They worked with city leaders to pass laws that made housing and jobs more accessible. They trained people to be leaders in their communities, helping the movement grow beyond the city and into other regions. Traoré spent time mentoring young people, sharing his story and encouraging them to believe in themselves. One day, Traoré was invited to speak at an international conference about social change. Standing on the big stage, he looked out at thousands of faces. He told them about his journey from a young man who was told he didn't belong, to someone who helped build a new world order based on fairness and hope. He spoke about the power of community and the importance of standing up for what is right, even when it feels hard. After the speech, many came to thank him. Some shared their own stories of struggle. Others asked how they could start movements like Open Doors in their cities. Traoré smiled and said, "It begins with a single step and the courage to keep going. Together, we can break the walls that divide us." Back in the city, Traoré continued to work tirelessly. He knew the fight for equality was never over, but he was ready. With every person helped and every barrier broken, he felt the fire inside him burn brighter. The city, once cold and full of closed doors, was becoming warmer and full of new possibilities. Traoré's story taught many that belonging is not about where you come from or who says you are worthy. It is about the strength to dream, the courage to act, and the kindness to help others along the way. In breaking the old world order, Traoré built a new one where everyone had a chance to belong, and so the city's lights shone brighter, not just from the tall buildings, but from the hearts of the people who believed in a better tomorrow. If you want, I can help you expand or polish any part further.